If you're finding value in stories like this, true accounts of courage, faith, and impact, please consider subscribing today. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community as we continue exploring inspiring lives that point us to something greater. Picture a man driven by an unbreakable faith, crossing thousands of miles of unknown wilderness, facing dangers that would crush most spirits. He viewed Africa's vast plains, dense forests, and mighty rivers, not as obstacles, but as a sacred field where the gospel could shine and human suffering could be relieved. This is the true story of David Livingstone, missionary, explorer, physician, abolitionist, and one of history's greatest heroes of Christian faith. Born March 19, 1813, in Blantyre, Lanarkshire, Scotland, David grew up in extreme poverty. His family occupied one cramped room in a tenement attached to a cotton mill. His father, Neil, worked as a tailor and tea seller while teaching Sunday school with deep conviction. His mother, Agnes Hunter, ran the home with quiet strength and prayer. From age 10, David labored 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, in the noisy, lint-filled mill. The work was backbreaking, piecing broken threads, breathing cotton dust, but even as a child he refused to let his mind stagnate. He balanced books on the spinning jenny and read by the dim factory gaslight. Latin grammar, theology, travel accounts, anything he could borrow. This habit of self-education, fueled by a belief that knowledge honors God, shaped his entire life. His spiritual turning point came around age 19. Reading the words of Jesus in Mark 16:15, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature," he felt a direct call. It was not mere emotion. It was a lifelong commitment. He vowed to serve Christ wherever the need was greatest. To prepare, he studied medicine at Anderson's College and theology at Glasgow University, often walking miles to classes after night shifts at the mill. He joined the London Missionary Society in 1838, drawn to its emphasis on unreached peoples. Why combine medicine with missions? Livingstone believed healing bodies opened hearts to the gospel. Physical compassion, he said, was the practical arm of spiritual love. In December 1840, at age 27, he sailed for South Africa. The 3-month voyage tested his resolve, but arrival in Cape Town filled him with purpose. The land astonished him, endless savannas alive with elephants, lions, and antelope, towering mountains, rivers that roared like thunder. Yet beauty hid horror. The Arab, Swahili, and Portuguese slave trade tore families apart, marching captives in chains to coastal markets. Livingstone saw this evil as rebellion against God's image in every person. His faith demanded action. He settled first at Kuruman, the mission station of veteran Robert Moffat. There he mastered Setswana, preached in villages, and married Moffat's daughter Mary in 1845. Mary became his partner in every sense. Brave, practical, enduring hardship without complaint. Together, they moved north to Mbatsa, among the Bakwena people. Livingstone built a simple house, taught farming techniques, treated the sick, and shared Christ. He refused to stay behind a pulpit. He lived among the people, earning respect through service. One dramatic moment defined his courage. In 1844, a lion attacked a village herd. David rushed to help, firing at the beast. It seized his left shoulder, crushed the bone, and shook him violently. Villagers drove it off, but the injury left his arm permanently weakened. Doctors later marveled he survived. In his journal, he wrote, "It is a privilege to suffer for Christ. I am immortal till my work is accomplished." That mauling became a symbol. Pain could not stop him. Faith turned trial into testimony. By the early 1850s, Livingstone grew restless. Mission stations remained small islands in a vast continent. Slavery continued unchecked. He believed the interior must be open so legitimate commerce could replace the trade in human lives. His famous motto emerged: Christianity, commerce, and civilization, 3 forces working together to end oppression. In 1852, he began his greatest journey, leaving Mary and their 4 children at Kolobeng, while he crossed the Kalahari Desert with ox wagons and Makololo guides. The desert was merciless. Sandstorms, thirst, scorpions, Nights so cold, the water froze in buckets. Yet he pressed on, trusting God's provision. He reached Linyanti on the Zambezi in 1853. There, Chief Sekeletu welcomed him warmly and supplied men and supplies for the historic crossing. Livingstone traveled west to Luanda on the Atlantic, then turned east, following the Zambezi to the Indian Ocean at Quelimane. No European had ever walked coast to coast across Africa. He mapped rivers, cataloged plants and animals, recorded tribal customs, and preached wherever he stopped. The journey covered over 4,000 miles and took 4 years. Through it all, malaria struck repeatedly, yet he wrote, "The prospect of peril and pain never daunted me when I felt certain of the path of duty." November 16, 1855, brought his most famous discovery. Guided by Makololo paddlers, he approached a deafening roar on the Zambezi. Before him stretched Victoria Falls, over a mile wide, dropping 355 feet into a narrow gorge, spray rising like smoke. He named it for Queen Victoria, but in awe, he declared the sight must have been gazed upon by angels in their flight. For Livingstone, this was no mere waterfall. It was evidence of the Creator's majesty, a reminder to worship and proclaim. Back in Britain in 1856, he published Missionary Travels and Researches in South Africa, 1857. The book combined adventure, science, and fervent appeals against slavery. It sold tens of thousands of copies, making him a national hero. Lectures in London, Manchester, and Glasgow drew huge crowds. He challenged Christians. Can the love of Christ carry us where his arm cannot protect us? Many young men and women answered yes, volunteering for Africa. His next expedition, 1858 to 1864, backed by the Royal Geographical Society and British government, aimed to open the Zambezi as a trade route. It brought heartbreak. Mary joined him in 1862, but died of malaria at Shupanga. He buried her under a large baobab tree, writing in anguish, "Oh, my Mary, I shall never see her more. For the first time I feel willing to die." Grief nearly overwhelmed him, yet he prayed for strength and continued. The expedition faced obstacles. The Zambezi's rapids made navigation impossible. Porters deserted. Portuguese officials obstructed progress. Still, he explored Lake Nyasa, now Malawi, documented slave raids, and sent reports that stirred British conscience. In 1866, at age 53, he launched his final quest to find the source of the Nile and expose the East African slave trade. He traveled with a small party into regions few outsiders had seen. Years passed with little news. Hunger, dysentery, bleeding ulcers, and repeated malaria attacks wasted his body. Porters stole his quinine, hostile tribes blocked paths, Arab slavers threatened him, yet he refused to turn back. "I will place no value on anything I possess," he wrote, "except in relation to the kingdom of Christ." Rumors of his death spread. In 1871, the New York Herald sent journalist Henry Morton Stanley to find him. Stanley located Livingstone in Ujiji, Lake Tanganyika, thin and ill, but still working. The famous greeting, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume," marked one of history's great meetings. Stanley brought supplies and news from home, but Livingstone declined to leave. They explored together briefly. Stanley later said Livingstone's quiet faith led him to Christ. Livingstone pressed southward, seeking the Lualaba River, convinced it fed the Nile. In truth, it flows into the Congo, but his mistake does not diminish the effort. By early 1873, he was barely able to walk, carried in a litter by faithful attendants, Susie, Chuma, and others. On April 30th, he was too weak to stand. That night, his companions heard him praying. On May 1st, 1873, they found him kneeling beside his cot, head in his hands, already gone. He was 60. His African friends refused to abandon him. They buried his heart under a mvula tree near Chitambo's village. His heart belonged to Africa, then dried and preserved his body with salt and sun. For 9 months, they carried the remains 1,500 kilometers to the coast, facing every danger, so he could be buried in his homeland. On April 18, 1874, David Livingstone was laid to rest in Westminster Abbey. The tomb inscription reads, "Brought by faithful hands over land and sea, David Livingstone, missionary, traveler, philanthropist." What made him a hero of faith? Not flawless success, few direct converts, many plans frustrated, but unyielding trust in God. He read his Bible daily, even when pages were falling out. His journals brim with prayer. "Lord, send me anywhere, only go with me." He saw exploration as revealing God's creation, medicine as showing God's mercy, abolition as obeying God's justice. He treated Africans as equals, learned their languages, respected their customs while pointing to Christ. His life bridged worlds, science and scripture, compassion and courage. Today, in an age of comfort, Livingstone challenges us. Faith is not safe sentiment, it is costly obedience. He reminds us that following Christ may lead through deserts, illness, loneliness, and loss, yet the promise remains. "Lo, I am with you always." His legacy lives in churches across Africa, in the end of the East African slave trade, in maps that guided later missionaries, and in every believer who dares to go where God calls. May the story of David Livingstone stir your heart to live boldly, love deeply, and trust completely in the one who never fails. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, please subscribe now so you never miss the next inspiring journey we share. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's keep exploring lives that matter. The story of David Livingstone is in a book. To get it, check the description below.